All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Glad to have you. My name is Peter, and I'm showing you this video today to kind of document a project I recently worked on. I've been very busy with my first couple of weeks of school. That's right. I just started school, and I'm gonna show you a design project I started. This is the first design project in like the first year of school, like in the first class you take. So it's all very introductory, right? And basically, what you do in this project is you design a place for a leaf. And I'm going to explain every step of it to you, what the assignment was, what I did, my struggles and everything. But first, I do want to take a minute once again to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. It's thanks to sponsorships like this that I am able to go to college and do projects like these. So click the link in the description and you will see that you can get 2 whole months of premium subscription to Skillshare for free. And there's all sorts of crazy classes you can take on there. If you don't want to do what I'm doing, like pay thousands of dollars to go to school, you can get free education online. I think one of the big advantages Skillshare has on things like YouTube is that there's a little bit of quality control, it seems like, for the kind of videos they put on there. And whether you want to, just get some inspiration for what to draw in your next sketchbook, whether it's outside plein air drawing or just doing some doodling. I mean, they have whole series of videos taught by faculty and professors at other like real colleges, professionals in the area, teaching real skills. So it's pretty interesting in that regard. So maybe if you enjoy my videos, you might enjoy some of these also on a wider variety of topics than I can offer you. So click on the link, check it out, see if anything piques your interest. But let's hop into this project. All right, so here you can see I'm in the preliminary stages of sketching out some ideas in my sketchbook, right? I'll tell you what the assignment was, okay? It says, design a place for a leaf of your choosing. The place you design should embody and celebrate the inherent qualities of the leaf: form, shape, color, texture, mass, symbolic content, etc. And now here's the part where it became difficult. It says, paper is the only material you may use in creating this place. Joints, connections, and spatial enclosure must be accomplished by manipulation of the paper alone. The choice of paper is yours. All right, so they were very vague about all this. This is the first project we've gotten. This is an interior architecture program, which, I'm even 3 weeks in, I'm not 100% sure what that means besides looking it up on Wikipedia. Like, I don't really know what I'm getting myself into, but I am enjoying it so far. I'm trying to just give it my all, right? What I have gathered is that they are intentionally vague and they just want us to do something, anything, right? They just want you to, like, apply yourself, sort of thing. Right. Yeah. So I just kind of like started sketching stuff out here. You can see on the paper, like I looked at the structure of the leaf, but this kind of ties into what the first phase will be. I'll tell you now what the first phase is. The first phase is diagrammatic studies of proportion, structure, and scale of your leaf, we had to draw it all nicely in 8x8 format, inches, ink on paper. So this is kind of like preparing for that. So this is you'll see that the next thing I draw looks a lot like some of what I'm sketching out here on the paper. It's kind of like preliminary, like just kind of getting all my ideas on the paper. And a lot of these ideas, I'm not like stressing out about them. They could be silly ideas, just like it's just kind of sitting there waiting to see what comes through my head. And if anything comes through my head at all, just put it on the paper. And then when you have it all out there in front of you, it's easier to deal with. Kind of like when you're reorganizing something in a drawer. It's easier to just dump out the drawer and then put it all back in one by one, right? So here's the phase 1. There's 4 phases total. Of course, I use my rotating isographs here. 8x8 inch piece of Bristol paper, or Bristol board as they call it. It really kind of bugs me that it's called Bristol board. When it really, to me, it feels a lot closer to paper than board, but it really is somewhere in between. I will admit that. So can see here I give it a nice dotted border, but yeah, the diagrammatic is a fun word. Studies the proportion, structure, and scale of my leaf. That's what this part of the assignment was. And really, I like that's all they say to for what to do for this part of it. Looking at a lot of my other classmates' stuff, a lot of other people turned in a lot of stuff that didn't look anything like what I'm doing here on my paper, and it was a lot of their things was fine too. We're fine. I'm losing my grammar skills. Is it true that we only have room for a certain amount of stuff in our head, and then if we learn other stuff, it pushes other stuff out? I feel like maybe I'm learning stuff right now in school, and then it's pushing out my grammar skills. It's okay. You don't need it. Sometimes you sound silly, but people still know what you're trying to say, right? That's the most important part. Anyway, but I had to present this information, but also still make it look good. I think that was important, like that your 8x8 square. They seem to emphasize this, that it still had like some flow, like it had design to it, that we didn't just throw it all on there willy-nilly, right? So I try to take that into account with, I had like some 2/3 rules or something going on here, like this, a little bit of that. I don't know. It's like one of those things where I hung it up on the board and there was like a critique, and they were like reading into it way more than I had intended them to. They're like, look how the flow of the thing, like it goes down and then back up and out, and the line weight and this and that. And I was learning from my piece as much as everyone else was, right? Like I'm like, oh yeah, I did do pretty good with that. I don't know. Maybe I did it by accident, or maybe I did it kind of subconsciously. I'm not sure. All right, so here we are at phase 2. Development of at least 5 place conjectures, which we had to do with paper sketch models. And I'd never heard this word paper sketch models before. Basically, it means to take a bunch of paper and make sketches with them. Maybe because the final piece is going to be made out of paper. It's going to be a paper model. So basically, like if you had like a real nice polished drawing, and then a sketch, kind of like that, kind of like loose, less polished versions of paper sketch models. So I made 5 of them. Some of them turned out better than others. I got a lot of use out of my X-Acto knife here. And I didn't even think for once not to use color, but maybe that's just because I had a big stack of like 200 sheets of different colors, colored pieces of colored construction paper. It's just I just wanted to use color, so I did. Like I didn't even think about not using color or just using like some regular white paper, right? But apparently I was one of the only ones that used any colored paper in mine. And then when I presented all 5 of my place conjectures, as they called them, the paper sketch models, these are just supposed to be like ideas of like how you could present the leaf, like places the leaf could rest in, and I had to have like justifications, like why, and my justification for like this one that's like a yellow orb, it's like I'd figured out what my leaf wants is, I found my leaf on a tree branch, and I figured out, my leaf wants sunshine, it wants fresh air, it wants wind, maybe moisture, right? It wants moisture because that's how leaves get that up through the stem of the leaf and up to the trunk of the tree from the ground. And it wants sunshine because of photosynthesis, and it needs air for like it absorbs carbon dioxide. All these things we know about the leaf. So I was taking that into account as I made these models, and so a lot of the models incorporated things that look like sunshine or clouds. But what I learned was in the critique of these paper sketch models is that maybe I shouldn't have used color, or I was all the critiques. I mean, it's like very gentle. Like they don't tell you like flat out like don't do this. They just say like maybe consider not doing that, or consider going in this direction. And I think it actually was better. You'll see here my final model that I work on making. I don't use any colored paper. It's just white, and actually some kind of see-through vellum. I guess I don't know. Is it too on the nose? Is it just like too obvious? It just like forces the viewer to assume only one thing or something. If I make like yellow sun rays everywhere, and I don't blue clouds, even though I guess clouds can be bluish. Depends what kind of light reflectiveness is going on there. I wasn't really sure about that. Like when they said not to use colored paper, like I said, I hadn't even considered not using colored paper. It was just like automatically did it. And because it was interesting to have different parts of the models to be different colors. But then also, it was almost just as interesting to have it be all white. Because I guess it kind of simplifies it. It makes you not get distracted by the colors, right? And I guess that kind of goes against what I usually do, because I usually doodle in just black and white. I don't like adding a bunch of color, so I'm not really sure. And this was something I struggled with, because if any of you have watched my doodles and watched my drawings, I have a very extreme tendency to just keep adding more, right? Add more detail, just add more lines, fill up the whole page, the whole paper till, I reach all the edges and everything. I can do that all day. I can just keep on adding everything. And what I was slowly learning here is that I feel like a lot of design is about, like maybe boiling it down to what's absolutely necessary, like experimenting with how much you can take away before it starts getting worse. Because maybe, there's a lot to be said for having like lavish designs with all sorts of crazy stuff going on. That can be very enjoyable, but also maybe a more valuable skill, one that can be harder to get to, something more, it's like ineffable. Is that accomplishing a lot with very little, right? So now I made a more developed, refined version. I developed a more refined version, I mean. Yes, and I just used, I was supposed to, ideally I would have used Bristol board for this, but the Bristol board paper, whatever it is very expensive stuff, so I didn't. I just used white construction paper, except for this is pink construction paper. You can see I was making like a die to, I was just using this to cut out other stuff. It's part of my process. Don't worry. If you can watch this and figure out what I'm doing, then fine. But I don't really know how to explain it. I was tracing it, cutting it out. A lot of these things I was doing, I'm not sure if it was actually the best way to do it. But I would just think about it for a second. I'm like, I could do it this way. I'm just going to do it that way. Like how I cut out this pink thing so that I could cut out 2 other white things and not even use the pink thing. Right? But I wanted it to be symmetrical. I don't really know how to explain it. But also I feel like I did kind of have to teach myself to be like a low-level origami, enthusiast to do this. I was doing a lot of because I had to make all these things connect and hold together without any glue or tape or anything. So I was basically learning about all the ways, you can cut cut slits and things and slide paper through the slits, or basically I just did a lot of that. Like a lot. I guess with origami you don't cut the paper very often, so maybe that doesn't really apply. Is there maybe just a paper craft in general? As you can see there, I'm putting stuff in the slits there. If you just cut if you use a razor blade or an X-Acto knife like this to cut like a 1-inch slit in the paper, you're not actually removing any material from the paper. So when you stick something else in the slit, you can make it kind of force it to go point one direction or the other, which I found very useful. I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm kind of making a motion with my hand right now, which you can't see. So you could be totally have no idea what I'm saying. But anyways, I enjoyed doing this little thing with the crossing paper strips, kind of weaving it together. That was reminiscent. That kind of goes back and was inspired by one of my previous designs, the paper sketch models. There was the one with the yellow orb, which I was building off of, right? And then kind of, I'll admit, the first yellow orb one I made with the little clouds around it, I know I didn't look at that one for too long in this video, so I don't know if you really got a good look at it, but it was like a yellow orb with clouds around it. And like some little yellow sunbeams it was almost resting on. I was like, this is a place for the leaf to be safe, right? And it has all the things at once. It has the sunshine, it has the clouds rolling in, and I thought the clouds are great because it's moisture and air. I think it is kind of, anyways. It's moisture in the air. So I was kind of running with that, but then as I made this more developed, this refined version, I feel like I lost that vision a little bit, and excuse me, it became more of I felt like I was making more of a shrine a shrine to the leaf. More of a leaf temple. I think that also, I felt that way because it was made out of all white. So it looked very like serene and sterile. I don't know. I did feel like some level of helplessness as I moved forward, and I didn't really know what to do about it. I just knew I had to keep moving forward because I had a few ideas I was moving. Like I didn't really know how to do, I was struggling with how to show sunshine. How do I show sunshine without the yellow paper? That's difficult, right? Is it just like radiating rays? Do I do just like lines pointing in and out? The clouds are easy to do. Like I said, I used vellum to do that, that's like kind of translucent paper, and I could like layer them up, kind of like in a diorama or something. So it was like, I think it was a really cool effect. And then the big kind of pointed arch over the orb in the middle there was like an inverted. The leaf itself is like a teardrop shape, so that's like an inverted shape of the leaf over it. I don't know how to explain it, but I feel like, and then like the little points on the inside of the arch are like pointing back into the leaf. So I got some like feedback. I got some critique on that. Then I had to make the development of the final version. The critique I got, as best I can remember, was something about how maybe I should add some sort of base to it. That's best I can remember. That's what I came away from it with. So I finally got a piece of Bristol paper. That's what I'm cutting into right now. And to put on the bottom. So it was actually 3 pieces of paper for the base. And so it could kind of stand up on its own. I wanted to give it like legs almost, so that it wouldn't rest flat on the desk or on the wherever surface you put it on. And one other thing I added at the end here was like some little round semicircles to go around the edges of the clouds on the outside, because I felt unsure about those. Like I didn't like the way those are hanging out over the edges with those little corners and stuff. But I also didn't really like the way I solved it either. Just like the little round semicircles, I liked the way they covered up the edges of the tabs of the clouds and stuff like that, but I'm just not satisfied. But it was, I don't know, there's some level between totally satisfied and good enough. Like I feel like maybe I got to good enough. But it's just hard to say. I mean, maybe, it's just like one of those things, like that's the reason why they make you do 5 paper sketch models. So you go through the different iterations and you feel out some different options. I felt like maybe if I made this model, like 5 or 10 or 100 more times, obviously I would get very tired of it eventually. And I would waste a lot of time and use up a lot of time. Maybe not waste. I don't know. Depends if I was getting paid for it or not. But, it's just like, I don't know, you just got to stop at some point. So you can see there the little semicircles I put around the edge to kind of bring in the clouds a little bit. And then it was actually very hard to make the leaf hang in the middle there. Sometimes it kept falling out because I poked a little hole in the top of one of those little strips. I poked the hole like a tiny bit too big, and the more I would put the leaf in there, the more relaxed the hole would get, and it kept falling out. So I had to pull like other parts of the leather strips like over and around it to kind of create some tension. I don't know, it's hard to describe. So I turned this in. I haven't gotten my final grade back on it yet. That's probably been a couple days. But I mean, I think they liked it. I mean, I think I'll get a good grade. Basically, for the constructive critique that they gave me, they told me that it was, what I came away with, they told me that it was too complicated. I feel like that's what they said. I'm not sure if that's actually what they said, but that's what I feel like they said. You know what I mean? Like, what I remember might not be reality. But I going back to what I said earlier, I think I do need to, what I turned in was definitely the most complicated and ornate one out of the whole class, I think. Maybe with 1 or 2 exceptions. There were a few others that I liked, but some of the other things that some of my classmates turned in, no offense if any of my classmates are watching this, but they were like one piece of paper with just some folds. And did I try too hard? I don't know. Maybe I did try too hard. Maybe, like I said, that is my personality, to keep adding stuff when maybe I really need to figure out what stuff to take away. Maybe it's okay to add a lot of stuff, right? Like I do. And then the real skill I need to learn is to do just that, to take a lot away and just leave what's essential, the bare bones. They said I was communicating like all these different ideas, like clouds and air and sun. They said maybe I should just stick to one of those, I think. I don't know. I enjoyed this though. Thanks for watching, everyone. All right, goodbye.